a younger Gen Xer, older millennial, and you wake up one day and you look at yourself in the mirror and you think, I'm gonna make some changes today. And I'm gonna start by deleting my Instagram and my Facebook account because I'm tired of giving Mark Zuckerberg my private information for free. So how am I gonna fill that hole? Well, all the young kids are on TikTok. Let's try that. You ignore the privacy policy and you get on there and your new feed is littered. In all the mayhem though, you discover an ad for the 24 Lincoln Nautilus and you're like, that looks fresh, that looks new. I want to try it. So you go to the dealership and you look at all the features, you look at the outside and like, yeah, that's pretty luxurious. It's something American luxury. I can dig it. And you get in the inside and you're like, look at all these screens. I got like 60 inches of screens in here. You get in the main infotainment screen and you dig around and you look at all the options and all the features that you have and then all the Lincoln features that you have in the apps and you're like, this is the new me. So you're going to want to know what you get for your $55,000 to $85,000 in here. And depending on your interior choice, there is a pretty big wow factor, just ignoring the screens for a second. The seats are some of the best in the luxury class in terms of adjustability, support, the massage function, if you get that, is great. The coolers work good. The heaters work well, although the massagers are a little bit noisy. As the deflators go off, there's a lot of hissing and high-pitched noise. But you can tell what they did is they benchmarked finally every single luxury brand. And when you look at the right side of the dashboard, you can confuse it for a Lexus, including the stitching. They've borrowed things from BMW and Mercedes in terms of the alloys. They've ditched all of the piano black and plastic chrome in here that littered their interiors before. It feels much higher quality. And the big thing here is they've moved away from some of their old technology, and now they have this massive panoramic screen that runs across the whole upper dashboard. And I think this is the future, and you're going to see it with BMW, and the screens are implemented in a way that is clean, although gimmicky as hell. When you look at the center infotainment, you'll realize you're running full-blown Android Automotive here, and it is a very fast experience. You can even go into developer options and turn off the animation scale and some of those features, and it speeds up the UI even more. The second part of it is you know it's going to get updated because it's unadulterated, Google-supported software. The two supplemental screens just basically mirror some of the functions, like when the mapping software goes up and it goes onto the center screen, it's really functional because you see the zoomed up screen up top in your line of sight and the bottom gives you the broad overview. So there's clever uses of technology here that a lot of brands need to really adopt in terms of implementing this technology going forward. While the right side screen is just relegated to a bunch of widgets, which is absolutely an unadulterated just vanity. It is completely useless and not customizable enough. I think it's going to blow people away, the people that like screens and want to be sun-baked and sun-soaked in these. I think they're going to like it, but they do a good job at allowing you to customize certain themes that kind of tone it down a bit. You can put the right side screen in a calm mode where it disappears. The main infotainment screen can't go off, but you can put it in more of a darker state, so the black level or the blackness of the screen is much more dominated, so it only shows you what you need to see. The physical controls are pretty decent. The overall fit and finish of the interior is pretty decent, but the big highlight here and the big surprise is the Revel Ultima audio system. It is pushing the boundaries of what Lincoln is doing, and they have purposely designed a lot of this interior around building the audio in the integration of the interior space. So what you get on the upper trim level, the upper audio system it's one of the best that we've ever tested. It is definitely right up there with the Bowers & Wilkins Diamond setups on some of them in the upper end Bowers & Wilkins. Although the sound signature is a little bit warmer, it's definitely on the warmer side. It's a little bit warmer in terms of just a tad more bass, and you notice that right away, but I think most people are really gonna like that. You can tweak it just enough to satisfy most audio palettes in terms of electronic music or Barbra Streisand or whatever you're gonna play in here. I think they did a good job with that, and overall this is definitely a step in the right direction in terms of what the brand is trying to do to capture some of the younger buying demographic. But we're gonna get in the shop and briefly talk about the technical stuff and take this for a drive. If you're looking to bathe yourself in all-American luxury, you've come to the right place to learn some of the surface level details about the all-new Nautilus. Now, this was designed for a global market in mind, and it is manufactured in China. So what they've done is taken their front-wheel drive platform that's shared with things like the Lincoln Corsair and the Ford Edge, and they've turned it into a long wheelbase version, which means you just get more space and more capacity. This is about 3 inches longer than those platforms, so they're maximizing what they can do here. When you look at the underbody, this looks more commodity versus a luxury, meaning if you look at the underbody, everything is all steel here, including knuckles. it looks more in line with something that's $30,000 versus $70,000 or $80,000. But there are other brands that do this. When you look at the Lexus RX, for example, there are some similarities in terms of materials, and it's all about how they implement and tune the chassis, and about bushing, damper design, and interior refinement. So don't let this mislead you. Now, brands like BMW, Audi, Mercedes, and Genesis, they work on a far more advanced suspension. This is strut front, multi-link rear. On the lower trim levels, you get non-adaptive dampers. When you go to the hybrid or the upper level trim levels, you get adaptive dampers, which is continuously adjusting. The goal here is quiet and comfortable, period. This is attached to an on-demand all-wheel drive system, no trick differentials with torque vectoring or any of that. It's all done by stability control. You have 2 drivetrain options. You have a 2-liter turbocharged engine, which is connected to an 8-speed automatic, or the hybrid version, which gets a CVT. Now, that's about it. That's about all I'm going to talk about here, but I'm going to take this for a drive and give you the high-level details there. It's time to put this baby in excite mode, which you know what that means. You want to drive a hybrid boat flat out? Oh, she moves. So here's a few things to know about this. Clearly, I was very upfront about covering the pros and cons of driving a vehicle like this. And you'd have to turn your brain off about luxury, what luxury is, what you want luxury to be, and all the technical things. You want to know how this drives and what it's like to live with. And I put a lot of miles on this, more than I typically would in a pressed car. I've had this on the highway going 100 miles an hour, and there's a few things that it does really, really well. It has great seats. The massage function works really well. The fatigue level's very low. The seat design is one of the highlights, even better than some of the upper-end luxury cars. It is pretty quiet. Given its roots, the platform this is on, it still keeps the noise and vibration and all the harshness at bay, and the audio system combined with that is pretty good. It's a car or SUV that is extremely comfortable and compliant at all times, meaning the up and down motions are very, very soft. So even when you get on the highway per se and you hit expansion joints, it does a great job at trying to isolate you out. Now, I haven't particularly driven this conservatively, and the average is about 25 miles per gallon, which is really not that bad for a big hauler like this. And I'm sure if you're more conservative, you could probably get in the upper 20s, no issue. Now, in terms of the isolation, the way that it does damping, this is not a Mercedes, it's not a BMW, it's not a Genesis. What you feel a lot more of on like sudden or harsher impacts driving this is a lot of body flex. There's a lot of torsional flex in the front and the rear of it where it doesn't feel as like a solid as a platform. And they know what they're dealing with here in terms of like a front wheel drive architecture. It does not have dynamics at all. All it wants to do is understeer all the time, and the stability control system is so invasive that anytime you're turning this at any even like moderate speed, 4 or 5 tenths, as soon as it picks up any understeer, it just turns the power of the engine off. So this is not, I repeat, this is not a good dynamically driving car at all. And you know, it does get decent traction off the line, but the way that the drivetrain is tuned, the hybrid side of this, is there's a lot of lag off the line. So if you need to get out quickly and you need to merge, there's this huge dead spot at the low RPM. So really, the way you're going to be driving this is understanding, one, it is a pure box on wheels as a highway machine or hauling people, or, you know, cargo. This is definitely on the low side of in terms of dynamics. They didn't focus on that. They focused on the interior technology, a lot of the vanity or the gimmicks in terms of screens, and they did a pretty good job in overall damping and ride refinement in terms of the way that they've tried to isolate out the road from you. So you're working with a platform that is not a luxury platform, but they've tarred up quite a bit, and it does sound and feel more like a luxury vehicle, even though the dynamics don't match up to any of that. And I think that's what you're going to have to decide. You know, with all the competition in this segment, this becomes a very, very hard choice for me personally. When you look at a luxury hauler, you know, people constantly ragging me like, why didn't you count on Genesis? And this is clearly one where you're going to Genesis over this, because this is going to depreciate like a rock. So if you're going to have a vehicle like this and all you care about is soft ride and quietness, I think the Genesis does all of the 360 better, including the driving dynamics. Having a rear-wheel drive architecture, it's far superior to this. And even things like an X5, it makes it like, okay, this is more of a value, but, you know, it's still not a BMW. Same thing with the Lexus equivalents, man. You know, the Lexus are a front-wheel drive architecture, but it feels far more solid. The driving dynamics are better. The longevity, the resale value is better. So this is in a very weird spot. And I talked about it in the interior space. You know, if you value some of the things that they're throwing at you here, and some of it is good, some of it's bad, you may really like this. But in terms of a driving machine, again, it is a boat on wheels. But let's head into the final thoughts. We'll talk about some more. Final thoughts on the new Lincoln Nautilus, and there's some pros and cons here I'm going to cover. Overall, I was surprised at how much I liked certain elements of this. Let's start with the exterior. The exterior is understated. I think they found a good middle ground between competing with all the different luxury brands and SUVs. It flies a little bit under the radar without putting you to sleep. And because there's not Lincoln badging all over the place and a bunch of tacky plastic chrome, and depending on how you spec this out, you can really black out everything on it, which is a different approach for Lincoln. And the same thing goes for the interior space. So the interior, depending on your trim level, you can really do some interesting things with material choice. And I said this in the interior space, it's not groundbreaking, and there's a lot of gimmicks in here in terms of technology, but they looked, and you could tell they benchmarked pretty much every luxury brand, and they took a little bit from each one of them, and they made it work. So gone is the days of all the cheesiness with plastic chrome and piano black. It's all matte textures, all metallic look texture. So again, perception-wise, it's going to appeal to somebody that's you're probably under 45 or 50. You know, I'm sure that's what they were targeting. The seats are really, really good for a luxury brand. Honestly, that's one of the best suits of it. The adjustability is great. The massage function's good. The noise cancellation through the audio system is also good. The use of their hydraulic bushings and the way that they tune their dampers makes it a more isolated space given the platform that it's on. And I think it does the perceived luxury part very well in terms of comfort. The technology part is a blessing and a curse. They use pure, unadulterated Android Automotive, which it operates just like an Android phone. So if you're a user of that, you're gonna be like, okay, this just works. You get in, it pairs up every time, it's always ready to go. And if you don't use Android, the software that's baked in, Google Maps comes up already, like you're already paired to Android Automotive as long as you have an internet connection. So that part is very, very good. And it's already up to date and it's gonna stay updated now. But what they've decided to do is take that to the next level with this huge panoramic screen. And to be fair to them, it's well implemented. It's at line of sight. The dashboard's pretty low because of it, but the screens don't offer much. The passenger side is just a bunch of widgets, much like BMW is gonna do, where you can drag and drop the information you want there. It's pretty much pointless. The main gauge cluster is overbearing, and a lot of the key usability areas still require software interaction, like your HVAC controls are now in the touchscreen, like many brands are doing. They put too much there. So I don't know, depends on how you feel about it, whether you're gonna like it or not. The drivability is the negative part. You can tell they only had X amount of dollars, and when you share it with a front-wheel drive SUV in the $30,000+ price range, it's gonna suffer. While the damping technology is pretty good, it's very cushy, very soft, like over most pavement. On the highway, you're not gonna notice it, but when you crash over harder impacts, you can feel that washboard effect. It's a very rubber bandy feeling chassis. Despite the damping, it can't get rid of that. There's a lot that transmits through to you. It feels more wobbly. It's very boat-like. The dynamics are not very good. The on-demand all-wheel drive struggles to keep up, and it's constantly on the stability control. The brakes are always intervening or cutting power when you're turning. not good in that regard at all. So if you favor any type of driving, you know, you're not choosing that. And even like to say the Lexus, the RX feels like a sporty experience compared to this thing. So if you favor a boat-like ride and you don't really, not that sensitive to ride isolation and all that, then, you know, the Nautilus might work for you. I'm gonna leave it at that. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next video.